everyone, it's Ed from Runnable, and this is my review of the Puma Fast-R Nitro Elite 2. Not to be confused by the recently released Puma Fast-RB Nitro Elite, the rule breaker. I know they look quite similar, but in many ways they're different shoes. So we're going to talk about the shoe itself, how it felt to run in the shoe, who I think the shoe would be good for, and some of the competition of this shoe. Okay, so let's get into the shoe. So it's 260 grams in my UK size 9. So it's not a light shoe. It's up there with the Prime X Strung. It's heavier than the Cielo X1. It's a lot heavier than the Endorphin Elite, and it's much heavier than, say, the Sky Paris. It's heavier than the Alphafly. In fact, it's heavier than nearly all the other carbon racing shoes, which is a bit of an unfortunate thing from Puma. I mean, you would have thought one of the things they would look to do with this shoe is make it as light as possible, but they haven't, and that is a sticking point for a lot of people. But it's not, don't leave this review now, because there are some good things of this shoe, and there's certain people I think will get on with this shoe, and you may be one of them. So continue to listen, and you may find this actually suits you rather well. Okay, so that's the weight, the stack height. So we've got 40 in the heel, 32 in the forefoot, you guessed it, an 8mm drop, very common in these carbon racing shoes. It feels about an 8mm drop, to be honest. When I run in this, it was really quite a nice pounding experience. You can see with the rocker here, when you land, you kind of fly off at the forefoot. And so the 8mm drop actually felt rather good in this shoe, to be honest. So that was a plus point. The rest of the upper, so you can see it's got quite a wide footprint here, which is unusual for Puma shoes actually. They're normally a lot more narrow than this. So if you've got a wide foot, this may work for you. But just be careful, it's a very low volume shoe. So your feet often touch the top here. And if you've got high volume foot, they'll rub against the top here and it could cause you some irritation. I've seen people with this shoe actually wear away with their toenails up here. So you will feel kind of constrained if you've got a high volume foot, and you will get a lot of rubbing. So that's something to be aware of with this upper. It's kind of a knit sock upper. You've got this very stretchy tongue here. You've got this nice bit of plastic here, like rubber actually, which you can cinch your laces on top of, and it doesn't give you any bite into the foot, which is kind of nice. You've got good lockdown in the heel. The heel is an issue though, so I'll talk about that in a minute. The collar, you've got you can see some of that darker fabric there to give you that kind of cushioning around the heel. And then and the ankle, and then you've got the heel itself. And as you can see here, you've got this stitching right down the middle. Well, whoever came up with that idea, I've got no idea why, because that's causing a lot of people irritation with the back of their heel, causing some blistering and some scratching, and it's a problem with this shoe. I personally didn't get affected by it too much. I felt some irritation on my Achilles. I think that's because it's a very rigid heel counter, and I'm used to it being slightly less rigid than this, like this Cielo. It's mainly due to this shark's fin here that adds the structure at the back. But all in all, I think this is potentially going to give people a few issues, this area, the heel area. So you need to try this on and go out on a treadmill and give it a good 5k before you decide whether this is good for you, because you'll know by then if it's rubbing on your heel or not. And if it is, I wouldn't go any further with this shoe, because it's only going to get worse. That said, for me, I'm a 4-foot lander. I didn't feel like it was a deal breaker for me. It was a slight irritation on my Achilles, but my Achilles are quite sensitive, so a lot of shoes can do that for me. So yeah, so all in all, I quite like the upper. It fit well, got good lockdown. It's just low volume, and there could be some irritation in the heel, so you've got to bear that in mind. Okay, outsole, Puma outsole. The grip is amazing, as you would expect. No problem whatsoever with grip. I went up hills, down hills, in this, and it was fine. I haven't tried it on really wet weather, but I've got no reason to think it'd be any worse than any other Puma grip that's out there on the market, which is always excellent. It's up there, tier 1 with Continental rubber from Adidas, so you won't have any problems with this outsole. You can see good coverage in the forefoot, and you've got these rubber pads in the heel for those that are heel landers. For those that are midfoot landers, you've got, unfortunately, you've just got a plate here exposed, and you've got this crevice here that could collect small stones, but I haven't had that issue really, and that's exposed foam you can see there. All in all, I like the outsole. I just think for midfoot landers, they may have some issues because of this, the way this shoe is structured. It's not really meant for the midfoot landers. We'll go and talk about that in a minute. And then the midsole, the foam. This Puma foam is really nice. It's nice and bouncy and springy. It's one of the top foams, actually, I think. It's up there with the Saucony Power Run HG PB. It's a good foam. I think it's got a similar sort of density to the Light Strike Pro, Adidas Light Strike Pro. So it is firm-ish. It's not like Zoom X or like the foam in, say, the Hoka Cielo X1. It's firmer than that, but you get a nice. It's dense, but you get a nice spring from this. And you've obviously got the carbon plate as well. You can see on there the lip of the carbon plate, which is very unusual. It sticks out beyond the shoe, which you kind of feel like, is that going to cause me problems? I'm going to catch that on something, or I'm going to trip people up with this. Well, I haven't had any issues with it so far, but I haven't used it in an actual race. I just feel like it seems a bit of a gimmick to me, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. The plate itself, you can see it exposed here. So it literally goes all the way from the heel down here. It's full length, and you follow it along, so it's quite low in the forefoot, and then goes up to this lip here. So I personally didn't feel like I was engaging the plate that much. I'm not a heavy person. I'm I guess around about 10.5 stone, 60 something kg, so I'm not a heavy runner. I think if you're heavier and you're a forefoot lander, you're going to really like the feel of this shoe. It's going to give you a nice toe off from the forefoot, and you're going to get a nice spring because you'll engage the plate. So I think if we can start to talk a little bit about who this shoe would be for, I think heavier runners, bounding runners, not people necessarily with really high shufflers with really high cadence. So not your tip-tappy runners, but more your bounders that are carrying maybe a few extra pounds, not necessarily in a bad way, it could be in a good way. They're powerfully built, and they hit the floor with a lot of power, and then you're going to get a lot of energy return from this shoe. I think this shoe is perfect for those high force bounding kind of runners, long stride, hit the floor hard kind of runner. I'm somewhere in between, so I have a bounding style, but I'm not that heavy. So for me, the forefoot worked really well, the rocker worked really well. I didn't quite engage the lip, and I land about here, I think, so I'm not quite up there. So if I'm going really fast, I might engage this, and I might see, if this is any use or not. So when I try this out in a race, I'll get a really good feel for if this is a gimmick or not. But even doing strides, I really didn't engage this part of the plate, so I've got no idea if this is going to work for me or not. But in general, I thought the geometry worked for me as a forefoot striker. I did try it on the heel actually, and I didn't particularly like it. I felt a little bit unstable when I landed on the heel. I'm not a heel striker though, so I'm not an expert on that. I'm just saying my experience. When I landed here, I was a little bit all over the place, but with this big platform on the forefoot, it was a lot more stable. So that's kind of the midfoot area, the midsole, and I think it's a good midsole. I think it's, you know, it's tier kind of 2, tier 1, and we come now to the problem facing this shoe. Now, I think what Puma's tried to do with this shoe is they've looked at the Nike racing shoes, they've looked at the Vaporfly and Alphafly, and they've tried to do something similar with the DV8 Nitro Elite, which is their version of the Vaporfly, which apparently the third version of that is very good. I've not tried it yet, but in the comments let me know if you think that is worth me trying. I've heard it is really good. The only worry I have with that again is how narrow it is, so that's something I have to be careful of with a slightly wider foot. And then this shoe, the Fast-R Nitro Elite 2, I think they've gone for the Alphafly model, where this suits more the bounding, strong, powerful runner. And so this would firmly sit in the Alphafly area of competition. And I've got the original Alphafly here. And, you know, this is a number of years old, but this is a lighter shoe than this one by a good 20 grams or so, sorry. It's actually, I feel like it's a better shoe, faster shoe, and more enjoyable shoe. So I can't quite understand why I would buy this shoe instead of this shoe, unless I'm putting real force through this shoe. I'm heavier. So again, we go back to who it's suitable for, maybe the heavier runner, the bounder. But as far as I'm concerned, Puma have got an issue here, because most people, they would go for the Alphafly, whether it's 1, 2 or 3. That would be a better buy than this shoe. Apart from the only other reason you might go for this shoe over the Alphafly is it's just hard to get hold of the Alphafly, right? So you might think, well, I'm not going to wait forever, I'll just buy a shoe that suits my bounding style, and then you might go for this. So that is a problem for Puma. The other problem is you've got shoes like the Endorphin Elite, which again I think are lighter, more responsive, have got as good a rocker, and for forefoot strikers just as good as this shoe. So you've got the Endorphin Elite and the Alphafly, which I think are better shoes than this, and that's going to be your issue with this shoe. This is not a cheap shoe either. I think it retailed at $260 initially, or $280 it might have even been. You can get it now at sort of $220, $230, but still it's a lot of money to pay for when you can get those two shoes for a little bit more. Why wouldn't you? They're better shoes as far as I'm concerned. They're lighter, more nimble, and I think they're going to suit people who are forefoot landers, just like this shoe. I think this shoe actually weirdly sits in the Prime X Strung kind of area of a bit of a tank of a shoe that you could go, if you're going a long straight line, like a park run that's got long straights, this could be a real weapon. Particularly, as I said, if you're that forefoot striker who hits with force, I think you're going to pick up some real speed in this. But you're doing a lot of cornering, or where you need to slow down and pick up speed again, this is not your shoe. It's not nimble enough, and that would be my worry about this shoe. It's got a limited use case really, and I can only see the certain people of certain body shape, body size, the way they run, the gait, enjoying and getting the most out of this shoe. So I think it's become a kind of a niche shoe with better options out there on the market. So that's kind of my summary. I don't feel like this is a shoe is necessarily a good buy for many people. That said, I definitely, now that I've got it, I'm definitely going to run some 5Ks, 10Ks in this shoe. I'm going to put it through its paces, because I do think on the right route this could be a bit of a weapon for me with the way I run. I probably, just because of how firm it is and how constrained my feet feel in this, I might not take this half marathon or marathon distance. I feel like the sweet spot for me for this is 5K, to be honest. I think this could become a 5K shoe for me in certain routes, where you get long straights. I don't feel like this is going to be a good shoe for me for a half marathon or a marathon. I think there are too many better options out there for me for those kind of distances. So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say about this shoe. Hopefully you found that useful. I don't want to do this shoe down too much. It is, you know, Puma, I like the way they're experimenting with technology. It's not a shoe that I particularly like the look of. It's not my favourite, nor is this my favourite, to be honest. But that said, I applaud them for experimenting. And, you know, although when I put this on, or when I put this on, lots of people look at me funny, I think maybe that's a good thing, to be honest. I don't worry about that kind of thing. If it catches people's attention, then I guess Puma have done the right thing, and they're promoting their brand, right? And that's what they're trying to do, and that's what they're definitely trying to do with this shoe. This is not meant to be a performance shoe. It's too heavy. They want to promote their brand, promote the technology that they're looking at, and cause a wow factor. And they did something similar with this shoe, I think. So that's all I want to say today. Hopefully, like I said, you found that useful. If you've liked the review, please give me the thumbs up. If you've got any thoughts on what I've said today, please put them in the comments. If you've used this shoe and you really like it, or conversely you hate it, let me know in the comments. I'd like to get opinion on this shoe. I'm not, like I said, I'm not overly kind of, it hasn't won me over, right? But I feel like there's something in this shoe for me, and I want to give it a go over faster routes, you know, long stretches. I want to really let leash the power and see where this takes me, because I've got this sneaking feeling this could be a sleeper for me. But that is only, I guess, because I'm a 4-foot lander. But we'll see. Anyway, I'm rambling a bit now, as I always do, so apologies for that. But thanks very much for listening to me today. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see you soon. And if you stand by, actually, don't leave yet. I've got some run footage of me in the shoe where I go through some thoughts when I'm actually running in it. So hopefully that'll be useful for you as well. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Okay, so first impressions of this Puma Fast-R Nitro Elite 2 is it really likes me landing on my forefoot. I can feel that already. It's tipping me forward. I'm engaging the plate. I can feel a kind of spring forward. It's not like a bouncy spring, it's more of a propulsive movement forward. It's making me lean forward, which feels fine. Has some bounce, but it's not like Primex Strung bouncy, for instance. It's kind of on the firmer side, so I'm thinking Endorphin Elite and Endorphin Pro from something, that kind of firmness. Probably definitely firmer than the Sky Paris, and firmer than the Diodora Gara shoes that I've tested recently. It's similar firmness to the leaning Fadian Ultra 3 that I tested earlier today. So yeah, it's quite a firm shoe, but not in a bad way. It's kind of feels like it has a stabilizing effect, and also pushes you forward when you run. It's not mushy at all. It's kind of firm, but you know, the geometry of the shoe, I think, with the plate and everything, drives you forward. I think this is a fast shoe. I think 5k, I think, even though it's a bit heavier than some of the others I've mentioned, I think 5k could be a sweet spot for this shoe. Maybe 10k. your legs can cope with it. There's no way I would take this. I don't think marathon distance, but that's just my preference because I like a softer shoe for that, like the Cielo. Or, well, I did take the Endorphin Elites, to be fair, and they're not soft, but I feel like this would be hard work over a marathon length. Slight rub at the back of my heel as well, nothing too crazy, but a slight rub, just something to be aware of. Right, hitting the road now. So I kind of summarise my thoughts on this one. I think this is a very fast shoe. I think for someone who bounds when they run and hits the ground with force, this is going to be ideal, particularly if you land on your forefoot. This seems like definitely a shoe for forefoot landers. I tried on the heel, it feels weird. Midfoot, there isn't a midfoot, as we'll see in the review. So yeah, forefoot landers, anyone maybe slightly heavier than me, maybe bounders who hit the ground with force when they stride. This would be perfect for those type of runners. I'm going up a hill now, and it doesn't feel too bad actually. Despite it being heavy, it's not bad. Not bad at all. Kind of has good spring actually. I think Puma onto something with this shoe. I think if they could make it a bit lighter and maybe make the foam just a touch softer, they've got a real winner here. It looks a bit weird, but in this luminous colour I don't mind it so much. But it's not my favourite looking shoe. Definitely not one for the gym, unless you want lots of conversations that you don't really want in the gym. But yeah, I think give me a long straight park run anywhere and this shoe's going to do damage. It's going to be a good option. That's me anyway. I'll see you later. Bye bye.